And we're getting into our conversation today on how to get a paid, I'm talking about paid, we're not going for free, we're trying to get paid brand deals on Instagram. What are the best ways to get a brand deal that you would recommend?
I think you do need to have a pretty solid mission. I'm not going to call it a niche because I don't want to
Isn't that a bad word?
It is. It really is. People yell at me all the time. I think it is really smart to have a pretty solid mission to be building your page. If you are a creator who talks about 500 million different things and your audience is so diverse, that may actually be more of a problem than it is a good thing when it comes to brand partnerships. Because if I'm a brand, I want to spend money paying someone for a partnership that I know is going to make me that money back. For me, I very often get hired by companies that are trying to target content creators because that's who my audience is completely made up of. I can more confidently make them that money back than someone who talks about 500 different things. I don't think you need to have one word that's like, this is my niche and that's all I talk about. But I think you do need to have a mission so that it's clear when people come to your profile, what are they going to get? Why should they follow you? And then you know who the people following you actually are. So I think that that is like the most foundational step. And then on from there, I actually have a very different perspective on this as well. One of the things that you'll very often see people saying is like, oh, send out pitch emails, cold pitch brands. And if you go on Instagram or TikTok, you'll see a million different creators who are sharing like, here's my pitch template. And I personally, I mean, very transparently, I used to pitch all day long. That was like all I did. I sent a bazillion pitches to a bazillion different brands every single month. But what I found from sending pitch emails, and that's essentially where, you know, you're sending an email to the brand where you're saying, hey, this is who I am. This is why I would want to work with you. Here's how we can work together. And you're kind of proposing a partnership to them. One of the things that I realized when sending out pitch emails is that most people are not getting responses at all. And so they're spending a lot of time writing these emails and maybe not getting anything in response. B, the people who do get responses, it's very often not a response that's like, awesome, here's thousands of dollars, perfect, let's hire you, everything is great. This is the analogy that I use. If you were to go on a first date with someone, you just met them, and then you were like, hey, can we move in together? Right? Like, that seems super, aggressive. Yes. Like, hold on, take a step back. Because, like, we don't even know each other yet. How can you expect someone to confide in you that much to pay you thousands of dollars? So I started doing something very different where I didn't send any cold pitch emails for a whole year in the year of 2022. And I instead just worked on building relationships with the people who worked at the brands that I wanted to work with. And so I created a really great network, just mostly through LinkedIn, actually. And I guess a little bit through Twitter when Twitter was Twitter. I don't know. I don't use it now, but mostly through LinkedIn, I started to connect with the people that actually work at these brands. And through just building these relationships, I found that more brands were starting to come to me because they were like, oh, we know this person. We already have a relationship with them. And they felt much more confident paying me hundreds or thousands of dollars because it's not like I'm just knocking on their door saying, hey, I'm Kristen, I'm a creator. Do you want to pay me to do this? Kind of creating that foundational piece of your business, I think, is step number one. And then step number two, like, continuously building a network of people who work at brands that you want to work with. And I have a guide I can send over for anyone who wants it. If you send me a DM, that kind of outlines this a little bit more in depth, but I'm anti cold pitch for sure. It's tiring.
I gotta say, you are kind of blowing my mind in regards to this because you're one of the very few people I've heard go anti-cold pitch in regards to getting a brand deal. And I'll be honest, I've done it myself. I'm doing it as well. You brought up some really great points in regards to why to consider this new strategy, this new method, because I don't think have heard of that many people being very successful with that cold pitch method. You know, as you said, it's asking out if you can move in on the first date, which is just quite, that's a red flag. You know what I'm saying? So that's a really interesting concept, the way that you broke it down.
Of course. I'll start by saying that it's going to vary at which level you're at with your social media community growth and, how engaged your community is, how long you've been actively building and connecting on whatever platform it is. That's going to be a little bit different, right? It's going to look like brands are coming to you a lot more when you're already established, right? You don't really have to do a lot of outreach. However, when you're just starting, or if there is a brand that you really want to work with, but like Kristen said, the cold DM and cold emails don't always work. So a different way you can go about that is to start to just randomly share about it in your content without getting paid. And I know you're like, wait, I'm creating content for them. Like, it could be something where maybe you're sharing tools that you use in your business, and it could be one of the 5 that you mentioned. So you're not necessarily just creating content about them. However, it is going to help you if you do highlight the features. And I would say a really easy place to do this is in your stories. So if you use something like every day or every week naturally already, and that's a brand you want to work with, just start sharing about it in your stories. Not like the awkward advertising style stories, but more like showing behind the scenes of you actually using it and doing it and just tagging them. It doesn't even have to be a shout out necessarily. You can be tagging them in your stories, and they'll get that notification. And then they're going to start to see your content. They might, the first time just like it, thanks for sharing. But then the more you do it, they're going to come over to your page. They're going to start to recognize you, and you're going to actually be more in their algorithm. There's a better chance of being seen by them organically when they're scrolling and building the relationship. So you're in the mind, right? So I definitely think that if you're starting out, or even if you are established, but you have a brand you really want to work with, start just sharing about them naturally, organically, and know that what you're doing is, again, building relationships versus cold pitches.
Yeah, I actually love to add on to that too. I mean, that's something that that's actually like the first step of the anti-pitch method, is to have these touch points where you're organically showing them like, hey, I do love the brand. I'm not just reaching out to you today to try and get a partnership from you. And I think it's very important that you brought up the point of like integrated versus dedicated posts. So dedicated would be the ones that we want to get paid for. That's where we're saying, we'll use Stanley as an example, like you used before. Have one right next to me. I mean, this would be like me saying, getting on my Instagram and saying, this is my favorite water bottle. This is like all the features. Here's why you should buy one. Like, this entire post is about Stanley, and that is a dedicated post. Versus integrated would again be like, here's 5 things that are on my desk. Okay, these 2, I have this, and it's going to be me tagging multiple brands. I'm not going in depth about Stanley. I'm just simply kind of like including them as a touch point of like, hey, I use it, I like it, because we want to save the dedicated post for like the things we would actually get paid for.
Yes. I'm going to go to my own. My own is a little bit different. I'm going to tell you straight up, a little bit of full transparency. I have never done this myself, but I have heard others have done it, including my one of my siblings. I've heard that they've had good responses from it. So I did a little bit of research into it. So I want to share this one with you guys that you guys can get started on right now. Believe it or not, everybody has access, if you have a business or a creator's account, to what Instagram calls the creator marketplace. And what this is pretty much is they've built in-house a platform for creators and brands to meet. Brands could go on there and look for specific creators based on demographics such as age, geography of where they're located, and obviously their interests and what they specialize in, including even their following size and some of those other meta details as well. And brands can filter based on what information you provide to create this marketplace, and then they could offer you certain campaigns that they've created within the marketplace as well. So I'm going to share a few details that I learned about this, because this is something that not a lot of people talk about, but everybody has access to. Instagram says is where brands can discover creators to collaborate with. Brands search for creators by all of those demographics that I just listed. And initially for brands, it used to be by invitation only, but now if you are a brand, you can request access to it. So it's opened it up a little bit more to some of those other brands that maybe weren't able to get access initially. Brands can create campaigns and projects to share with creators, including outlining campaign overview, presenting how much the compensation is, and what exactly are the deliverables for that campaign. And you, even as the creator, you could go in there and it's almost like you're bidding on the campaign if you want. So you could go in there, put your name, share what you've done before as a portfolio, and what you can possibly do for that campaign, and then they would decide who they want to work with. We all have access to this as long as you have the business and the creators account on Instagram. And if you want to find where you can get access to this, you got to do is to tap that professional dashboard, tap branded content tools, and then you should see, if you have access to it, you should see join creator marketplace. And I say that because not all areas in the world have access to it. Don't blame me. I am just the messenger. Okay.
It always comes back on the person who announces it.
Yeah.
We all
Don't
know that
blame
too
me.
well.
Don't send me the angry DM. Send it to Maseri if need be. I'm just letting you know. You go ahead and walk through the entire process of joining, confirming the new partnership. You even get a new inbox in your DMs labeled partners. So any brand that sends you a campaign request, you will find it there in your DM specifically. So you even get a brand new inbox. And I think this is a great way to kind of like put yourself out there, depending on what you can offer, what you can do for brands. Is a great way to get out in front and build your portfolio initially. And then maybe you can kind of move towards some of the more in-depth solutions that we've already kind of listed before.
Curious to know from everyone, have you ever done a brand deal on Instagram? Whether that was paid or maybe it was an exchange for goods. So maybe they gave you the product, or was it UGC? Just thumbs up if you have ever done a brand deal, and thumbs down if you have yet to do one, you haven't done one yet.